Okay, so these are really gonna come into place where we get into sound signals, which isn't until Thursday, like the second half of the class. And you're learning Morse code for, sound signals and light signals. So when you're in international waters, which is known as the high seas, it's signals of execution. So shortest, simplest way to explain that is like if I was gonna overtake somebody in international waters, I would set, and I want to leave them on my port side and pass them on their starboard side. I would sound one short blast and I would just go. Signals of execution mean that you can make a maneuver without the other vessel's agreement. There's no agreement signal. So, but when you're in inland waters inside the Colorado demarcation line, it's signals of intention, and you can't do a maneuver around another vessel without getting their agreement. So, like, here's a good example. Marblehead, when you go into Marblehead Harbor, it's a very narrow channel. And let's just say two vessels are heading outbound, and it's a real crowded Saturday summer day, and there's a boat in front of you. And it's a narrow channel, so there's not a lot of room to go around it unless you go in the mooring field. So let's just say that like you want to go around that other vessel. Legally, you can't unless you get their approval. And that's where signals of intention kick into place. You can intend to overtake them, go around them, but but you would have to sound the appropriate sound signal to do that, whether you're going to the port or starboard, one short blast, two short blast. And then they would have to sound the agreement signal, which I'm not even going to get into this until Thursday. But like, if they don't sound anything or they don't mimic the same sound, then you can't overtake them or go around them. Because if you do and they don't agree with you and you get into an accident, it's your fault. So that's what signals of intention and execution mean. Meaning, like, you need an agreement from the other vessel in order to make a maneuver. So I'm really going to go over that on Thursday when we go into sound signals, but that's what it means.
Okay.
Does that make sense a little bit?
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Okay.
So what's the answer?
So,
Two is
so,
B and three is
so
C.
international rules of the road. So number two, it's signals of execution, meaning you don't need an agreement from another vessel.
That's
And when you're in
okay.
inland waters, inland rules, number three, it's signals of intention requiring agreement of both vessels. Inland, there's an agreement signal. In international waters, there's no agreement signal because you can just do what you want. You just do it. Which we're gonna really get into that stuff on Thursday. But I knew those two questions would maybe trip you guys up because it's something that I haven't gone over yet. And I was gonna go into that before I'd go over anything. Any other questions?
I don't think so.
So I'm gonna go over a general review of everything that we went over the other day with class 12. And I'm gonna ask you guys questions and I'll explain things as needed. So in the US, like I mentioned, it's the only country where they separate the rules of the road into two categories. It's inland versus international. What's that nautical line called that separates the rules of the road?
Call
Color
reg.
demarcation.
Yeah, call regs of demarcation. And it breaks it into inland rules and international rules. International rules equals what? What's the definition? Two words.
High seas.
The high seas. Inland rules is just inland of the Colorado's demarcation line. So with that being said, we learned about a flashing yellow light. A flashing yellow light Is that an inland rule only or an international rule only or both?
Only inland.
Inland only. And what are some of the things that you would actually see that flashing yellow light on in inland waters?
Submarine.
A submarine,
Towing,
A barge towed.
a front of a barge being pushed ahead or towing alongside, or an air
infra,
cushion vessel operating in non-displacement mode. So you're only going to see that flashing yellow light in inland waters on a U.S. submarine, an air cushion vessel operating in non-displacement mode, and the front of a barge being pushed ahead or towing alongside. Any questions so far?
Negative.
Okay. So then we learned about vessel navigation lights. And the only thing that you got to study with vessel navigation lights are what light is it and what degree of an arc that it shows. So the first light we learned about is a masthead light. What does that light show of an arc?
225.
And what color is it?
White.
It's white. Then we learned about side lights. Port is left. Port line is red. Green, starboard, right. And it shows an unbroken light of how many degrees?
112 and a half.
112 and a half degrees. Then an all-around light is a perfect circle. So that's 360 degrees and it's white in color. Then there's a stern light and a towing light. It has the same characteristics, but they're just different in color. But what arc does it show?
135.
135.
135 degrees, but a towing light's yellow and a
Yellow.
stern light's white. When do you have to turn on your nav lights on?
low visibility,
Yeah, so from sunset to sunrise, in restricted visibility or near restricted visibility.
in both.
Both.
Yeah, exactly. All the above. Like you know, even like the lighted buoys and like the beacons, lighthouses, things like that, those will automatically come on in restricted visibility, like twilight. Once it gets to that level of darkness, they come on.
You said the stern light was 135 degrees.
Yep, a stern light and a towing light is 135 degrees in arc, but a stern light is white and a towing light is yellow.
Which one is what is it, 225?
The masthead light.
That's that light.
And that's in the case of if a boat is over 50,
20 meters, I think, right?
over 20 meters. it
So
needs
a
to be?
mast, I'm gonna go into that right now. I'm gonna
Sorry.
go over everything. And I know it's a lot of meters and different rules and stuff, but I'm gonna go over everything. Good, you're thinking about that though. So then we learned about the order of threat. What's the least threatening light that you'll see?
White all around.
Yeah, a single white light. And what are some of the things that you would see that?
7x7 paddle boat.
Yeah,
The
so a 7x7.
Anchored vessel.
So all right, yep. So anchored, 7x7, a manually propelled vessel, the stern light of a sail or a power-driven vessel, even a single white light on land. It's the least threatening light. So we learn the rules of the road by the order of threat, which we're into right now, and then the pecking order of right of ways. So then the second order of threat is a sailing vessel. Now, sailing vessels, that's when you just got to stop and think. Sailing vessels has its own special set of rules. And for a sailing vessel, they have side lights and a stern light. A sailing vessel may also display their side lights and stern light into one lantern if they're less than 20 meters in length. They are allowed to combine their side lights and stern light into one lantern only if they're 20 meters or less in length, less than 20 meters. They also may display their side lights at the top of the mast. And the saying is what? What would you see if a sailing vessel decided to have their side lights at the top of the mast? What would it be?
Green.
Red over green, sailing serene. But if they do decide to show the red over green at the top of the mast, can they also have them on their bow?
Negative.
No, because it would look like two vessels. So then the next order of threat that we learned about is a power-driven vessel. Now this is going to start answering some of the questions that you guys just had about mast headlights. So there's three separate categories for a power-driven vessel. So there's a power-driven vessel, which is propelled by machinery. And if it's less than 12 meters in length, they need side lights and an all-round white light. No mast headlights. If they're less than 12 meters in length, which is 36 feet, they just need side lights and an all-round white light. The second category of a power-driven vessel is if they're greater than 12 meters in length, but they're less than 50. Now they need side lights, a mast headlight, one mast headlight, and a stern light. But now so that's the second category of a power-driven vessel. The third category of a power-driven vessel is now if they're over 50 meters in length. Now they need side lights, stern light, and now they need two mast headlights. And the mast headlights have to be on the fore and aft center line of the vessel. And the one on the aft of the vessel towards the stern, which is the back of the boat, has to be higher in elevation than the one towards the bow because you have to be able to tell between the mast headlight and the stern light because they're both white in color. So those are the three separate categories of a power-driven vessel. Is less than 12 meters in length, no mast headlights are required. It's just side lights and an all-round white light. If they're greater than 12 and less than 50, then it's side lights, one mast headlight, and a stern light. And then if they're greater than 15 meters in length, then that's when they need two mast headlights. Any questions so far? So that's the order of threat. So you have a single white light, a sailing vessel, and a power driven. Now we're going to get into the whole pecking order of right-of-ways. Now with the pecking order of right-of-ways, what's the saying? It starts with new.
New reels
What?
catch fish.
So what?
Purchase some.
So buy some.
Yeah, so
Purchase.
purchase. What does new mean?
Not under command.
And what does that exactly mean? What's not under command mean?
Like an emergency with the captain.
Can't move.
Disabled vessel. The definition is due to an exceptional circumstance, is unable to maneuver according by the rules. They're at the top of the hierarchy. Every other vessel on the water, whether they're in inland waters or the high seas, has to get out of the way of a non-under command vessel. What's the saying for non-under command for the lights and day shapes?
Red over red. Captain's
Yep.
dead.
Two balls
Red
in the
over red.
grave.
Yeah, red over red. Captain is dead. Put two balls in his grave. So at night, so like I mentioned before, John, there's underway, making way, and there's underway, not making way. The definition of underway is not anchored, fast to shore, or aground. So if a vessel is not under command and they're underway, not making way, at night they're just going to have those two red lights in a vertical line. But if they're underway, making way, they would have to have their two red lights in a vertical line, side lights, stern light, mast headlight, depending on the size of the vessel. So there's underway making way and underway not making way. And if they're making way through the water, on top of those lights that's, say like what they're actually engaged in, whether it's ram, not under command, etc., they have to have their other navigation lights on as well because they're moving through the water. So then the next vessel on the pecking order is reels. What does reels stand for?
Ram.
Restricted inability to maneuver.
Yeah, and what does that mean? What does it do to?
Working.
The type of
Yeah,
work they're
it's
doing.
due to the nature of the vessel's work. And some examples of that would be like what?
Cable from a submarine.
Recovering an aircraft from the water, launching an aircraft, etc. servicing pipelines, servicing channel markers.
No.
It's transporting cargo. Those
That's
are
right.
all restricted in ability to maneuver. It's due to the nature of the vessel's work. I see it a lot around sailing with the Coast Guard boats when they're servicing channel markers and whatnot. They have the ball, diamond, ball up during the day. I'm seeing it a lot. So saying is red, white, red, captain's making bread. So it's and during the day you would see ball, diamond, ball. So then the next vessel in the pecking order right away is so we went over new reels. So the next word is catch. What does catch mean?
Constraint
Yeah,
by depth,
Draft.
constraint. Yeah,
Constrained by
constrained
a
by
draft.
draft. Yep, you were right on it. So it's constrained by draft. And this is a unique rule. It's a unique vessel, and it has its separate rule out of the whole pecking order. Why? Because it's international rule only. Because the reason why it's not an inland rule only also is because at some point in time, most vessels in inland waters are somewhat constrained by their draft, especially on like a spring low tide. So what lights would you see on a constrained by draft vessel?
3 red in a
Three-
row.
Yeah, three all-around red lights on a vertical line. And then the saying is draft beer can. So then during the day, they would show a black cylinder. So the next vessel in the pecking order is fish, which means fishing. Now, there's two separate categories of fishing. There's in a fishing vessel is defined as any gear or apparatus that restricts maneuverability. So then you have a vessel that's engaged in fishing, and then a vessel that's engaged in trawling. What day shape would they show?
Is it 2 triangles pointing at each other?
Yep, exactly. It's two cones with apexes facing together. And that's the same for fishing or trawling. But then the lights are different. So the day shapes are the same because they're still engaged in some kind of fishing. But what lights would a trawler show?
Green over white.
Yeah, green over white. And then if they're engaged in fishing other than trawling, what would they show?
Red
Red
over.
over white.
Red over white. So then, so a fishing vessel that has gear extended more than 150 meters horizontally off of their port or starboard
Paul, which one's which? Green is which one?
Trawling.
is trawling.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Isn't it? That's the same red over white fishing at night. Is that the right one?
Red over, yeah, so it's red over white fishing at night and green over white trawling at night. So then a fishing vessel that has gear extended 150 meters or more horizontally, whether it's off the port or starboard side, what shape would they have to show during the day in the direction that the gear is in? It's a black cone, a triangle, pointing in the direction that the gear is in, if it's over 150 meters in length. So then in the next vessel in the pecking order, it's sailing vessel. So before I even get into sailing, so new reels catch fish. All those vessels that we just went over, if they're over how many meters in length, do they have to show the lights and day shapes?
20.
Yeah, 20 meters in length or more. They must show those day shapes and lights. But
For,
a sailing vessel now has its own special rule. Now it's if a sailing vessel if a sailing vessel is 12 meters or more in length, but they're being propelled by machinery, they're no longer a sailing vessel. Now it's treated as a power driven vessel. So even if your mast is up, your sail's up, and you're actively using your little outboard engine, you're a power-driven vessel because you're being propelled by machinery. But you have to let other navigators know that you're a power-driven vessel now and not a sailing vessel. So instead of 20 meters or more in length, you have to show that day shape if you're 12 meters or more in length. And it's a black cone on the mast. So that's where the pecking order changes a little bit. New reels catch fish is 20 meters or more in length for the day shape and lights. But a sailing vessel propelled by machinery, which is a power driven, if it's 12 meters or more in length, it has to show that black day shape. So that's where the rules change a little bit. So then the next vessel is a power driven. They really have no right of ways. And then the only other vessel that would have to get out of the way of a power driven vessel is a seaplane. They have no right of ways because they choose when they land and become a vessel. They can keep flying in circles until it's safe. So that's why they have no right of ways. See a lot of them in like Boston Harbor. So then we got into towing. So there's three different kind of tows. There's a hawser tow, a pusher tow, and a hip tow. A hawser tow. It's the same for international and inland, and it's yellow over white towing at night. So on a towing, it's like a pusher and a hip tow. Those are the only kind of vessels you're going to see two mast headlights stacked in a vertical line. Now, I'm going to bring up the towing again. I'm going to share my screen because I want to go over this again because it's so a hawser tow, push tow, or in a hip tow. These are the only vessels that you're going to see mast headlights stacked on top of one another. And the saying is yellow over white towing at night. So they have to have side lights, two mast headlights in a vertical line, towing light over a stern light, and then the tow would have side lights and a stern light as well. And that's for a short tug, short tow. The only time you'll ever see three mast headlights in a vertical line
Long
is
toe.
if it's a long tow and it exceeds more than 200 meters in length. And during the day, they would have to show a black diamond on the tug and the tow as well to let you know that that length of the tow is over 200 meters in length.
What would the day markers be again?
Two black diamonds, one on the tug and one on the tow.
So the only time you see the special yellow blinking is if it's a push tow. These two don't have any yellow
Right.
blinking.
So
Oh, okay.
with the hawser, yep. So with the hawser tow, it's the same for inland and international only. Excuse me.
So if I see a special blinking yellow light, you know it's not one
Yeah,
of these tows.
a flashing yellow light. You're only gonna see it in inland waters only. So a hawser tow is the same for inland and international.
Oh, it is. Okay.
It's the same thing. It's just whether or not the length of the tow exceeds more than 200 meters in length. And if it does, you just need one more mast headlight. And then you just need the black diamonds during the day. These are the only differences. It's just if it's greater than 200 meters in length, then you need a third mast headlight. Or during the day, you wouldn't have that lights on, but you would have the day shapes. Any questions with this? So, three mast headlights in a vertical line. It's if it exceeds 200 meters or more in length.
Just one question. The
go
yellow
ahead.
is for inland and international on those, right?
Yeah, that's honestly the only yellow light you'll see in the high seas is a towing light over a stern light.
Yeah, I think I got something confused because I think last time I was looking, you flipped when they were inland, they had a yellow stern light when they were towing at night, and then when they got to international water, they flipped it to white. Didn't we talk about that last class? Or
Yeah,
was
so a
that?
pusher tow and a hip tow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
which I'm gonna go over that again.
That's what it is. Okay.
And I'm gonna
Yeah, so
keep
I'm just
going
getting
over it
confused.
again. Yeah, the towing is a little tricky. Even when I did this years ago, it was tricky for me
Oh,
when
so you
I
gotta
was
really know what type of toe it is to under. Okay, you gotta
yeah. So
memorize
the
that.
hawser, yeah, exactly. So if you're towing from a stern, the hawser tow you're pulling from behind. It's the same for inland and international. And the saying is yellow over white towing at night. You can say yellow over
Yellow
white.
over yellow over. I
Wait, go ahead.
was gonna say yellow over yellow pushing a fellow.
Yeah, inland only. And that's for hip toe too. So now I'll get into those as well. So I'll go back to this. I'm gonna make sure I go back to the towing again before I go into new information today. So when you're a hip toe or a pusher toe, and you're in inland waters only, this is where you're gonna see this flashing yellow light. And then once they get into the high seas, they shut that flashing yellow light off. And also when they're in inland waters, they have two towing lights in a vertical line on. Then once they get into the high seas, they shut off all their yellow lights and they turn on their stern light and they shut off that flashing yellow light. But so what I want to point out though is in international waters, the tug for a hip tow, the tow for a hip tow has a stern light on it because it's a hip tow. But why do you think if it's a pusher tow, why doesn't this tow have a stern light on it? Why do you think?
Because there'd be nowhere to put it because your bow is right. It looks like
You,
it's connected. It's
you,
all
you,
one, but it's all one piece, right?
yes, but the main reason is you would blind the captain.
Oh,
So a hip tow and a pusher tow for inland waters only. This is where you're gonna see the flashing yellow light on the front of a barge being pushed ahead or towing alongside. And it's yellow over yellow pushing in another fellow and towing alongside inland only. So in inland waters only, you're only going to see these two towing lights in a vertical line. You're only going to see this flashing yellow light. Same thing. Inland only, you only see yellow. There's no yellow. So for a pusher and a hip tow, there's no yellow for international. But there is yellow in international waters when you're a hawser tow. That's the only kind of vessel you will see a yellow light in international waters, a towing light, is if it's a hawser tow, but it would have to be yellow over white towing at night. So like this is international. There's no more yellow. So the three tows is a hawser tow, and it's the same for inland and international. And it's the only time in international, oops. It's the only time in international waters you're going to see a towing light, a yellow light. And it's the same for inland and international. But then when you go for a hip tow in inland waters only, you're going to see a flashing yellow light. You're going to see two towing lights in a vertical line. Then when they enter the high seas, they shut off their towing lights. They turn on their stern light, and there's no more yellow lights.
and on the pushing, there's no stern light because it'll blind the captain.
Exactly. So
Ah.
here, the tug only, when they're in inland waters, there's no stern light at all. It's just yellow over yellow pushing in another fellow. Same thing for a hip, like I just showed. Flashing yellow light, same thing. Inland waters only. But then when they get into the high seas, they shut off the flashing yellow light. They turn off their two towing lights and they flip on their one stern light. The reason why the tow doesn't have a stern light is because it would blind the captain. Restrict his visibility, or her.
If they can add another mast headlight, a mast white light if it's a larger vessel, right? Does it go from, can it go from 2 to 3, or is it always just 2?
The only time you would ever see 3 mast headlights in a vertical line is on what kind of tow?
A pusher
How's
tow?
our long toe?
A hawser, long tow.
Okay. Oh,
Yep.
so long tow,
The
okay.
only time you'll ever see the only time you'll ever see mast headlights stacked on top of another
Mhm.
is a tow. A hawser tow, hip tow, pusher tow. Those are the only time you're going to see mast headlights stacked right on top of each other. Because the only other vessels that you're going to see a mast headlight on is power driven vessels in categories 2 and 3, if they're greater than 12 and less than 50, or if they're greater than 50. But they're spread far apart from each other. One's on the fore and aft center line of the vessel if they do have two, or if they just have one, it's just on the kind of like the fore part of the vessel. So with these, a hawser tow, hip tow, and a pusher tow, this is the only kind of vessels where you're gonna see mast headlights stacked on top of each other. Stacked on top of each other. The only time you'll see 3 is if it's longer than 200 meters in length. It's only towing that you're going to see mast headlights that 225-degree arc stacked right on top of each other. And a hawser tow is the only kind of tow where you're going to see a towing light in the high seas. But if it's a pusher tow or a hip tow, there's no yellow lights at all in the high seas. It's only in inland waters. And when you're in inland waters, they have on the front of a barge being pushed ahead or towing alongside, they have the flashing yellow light. Then they get into the high seas, they shut off the flashing yellow light, they turn off their towing lights, and they flip on their stern light. I'm gonna go back to the towing again before we go into new information. So then we learned about a composite unit tow. How is a composite unit tow treated? Is it a towing vessel or is it a power driven? It's treated as a power driven vessel. So a composite unit tow is just treated as one vessel. It is a kind of a tow, but they get like kind of locked together. So it's just by the rules of the road, it's just a power driven vessel. And in this diagram, it's less than 50 meters in length, but greater than 12 because I only see one mast headlight, side lights, and a stern light. But if it was greater than 50 meters in length, then I would see another mast headlight over here, and it would have to be higher. So you can tell the difference between the stern light and the second mast headlight on the fore and aft center line of the vessel. Just like this. Which I'll get back into towing in a minute. So the other
Power.
two vessels that we learned about.
Well, my question was power-driven vessel over 20 meters can have the separated nav lights. Is that right?
It had so yeah. So
Has
if
to.
well, if you're greater than 12, actually, you have to. If
Oh,
you're
greater than
greater than
12.
12 for a
Greater than
power
12.
driven, yeah, if you're greater than 12, you have to have your side lights separated. It's only if you're less than 12 meters in length. Because greater than 12, you need a mast headlight. So your side lights have to be separated on top of having a big mast headlight. But if you're less than 12 meters in length, you're allowed to combine your side lights into one lantern. But you also have to have an all-around white light. Any other questions so far from anyone? So just to go over an anchored vessel, if they're less than 50 meters in length, they only need one anchor light. Greater than 50 meters in length, then they need two anchor lights. So the two other different kind of vessels that we learned about in class 12 with the lights is a pilot vessel and a vessel aground. A pilot vessel, what lights would it show? There's two lights, and it's white over red, pilot ahead. It's a power-driven vessel, but they're just engaged in a different kind of a service. So they don't, that's why they don't have like a specific day shape for them, because it's just a power-driven vessel, but they're engaged in a different kind of a service. So that's why they have specific lights. And the lights are white over red, pilot ahead. And then we learned about an aground vessel. Now, in a ground vessel, you're anchored not by choice, meaning you have to have anchor lights on. But then what other lights would you have to have on that tells you that that vessel is aground and actually not an anchor? There's two other lights besides a anchor light that you would need. And the two lights that you would need is red over red for aground on top of the anchor lights. So an aground vessel would show two all-around red lights in a vertical line and the anchor lights. And then the day shape would be three black balls in a vertical line during the day. So I'm gonna go back into the towing for a little bit. Is there anything else that I've went over so far? Because that kind of like summarizes what we went over in class 12, like the real key points. Is there anything besides towing that you need more explanation with or want to go over? So if you saw three mast headlights in a vertical line, what kind of tow is that? If I read a question and it said if you
Hauser
see,
tow.
since yeah, so if I see three mast headlights stacked on top of each other, that has to be a hawser tow. But now the question is, what is the length of the tow? Is it a short tow or a long tow?
Long
Long
tow.
tow.
Long. That's the only kind of vessel you will see three mast headlights in a vertical line. But then if it's a short tow, how many mast headlights in a vertical line would you see?
Two.
Two. Now, they have to have side lights as well. But on the back of the boat, what tells you that it's a hawser tow? What two lights? What are the two lights you would
Yellow
see?
over white.
Yeah.
Yellow over white. That tells you that's a hawser tow on the tug, and then the tow would have side lights and a stern light. And that's the same for inland and international waters. Now I'll go over that again. Just like that. So those are the lights I went over. But then for a long tow during the day, they would have to show a black diamond on the tug and the tow. So then we have a pusher tow and a hip tow. So that's when we got to think, okay, so a hawser tow is the only kind of a tow where you're going to see a yellow towing light in the high seas. But then for a hip tow and a pusher tow, there's no yellow lights in the high seas in international waters. It's inland only. So would a pusher tow on the, if it was a pusher tow, would the tow have a stern light? No. Why? Because it would blind the captain. And that's in international waters only and inland waters. But if it was a hip tow, even the tow itself in inland would still have a stern light on it and side lights. And what other light would it have on it?
Inland would have yellow.
Yeah, flashing yellow light. And then what two other lights would the tug have specifically?
Yellow.
Two towing lights in a vertical line. Just like that. So when in inland waters, they have two towing lights in a vertical line. Flashing yellow light. They go into the high seas. They turn off their towing lights. They turn on their stern light. They shut off the flashing light. There's no yellow lights. International, hip toe, pusher toe, there's no yellow. This is the same. This is the way, like I mentioned the other day. This is the way I look at these things is I write what kind of toe it is. What do they all have in common? You know they need side lights, mast headlights, stern lights. So like those are a few things to remember that apply to both. But then what you really got to study though is the difference. And the only difference is the yellow light. Everything else is the same. It's the yellow. This goes away. This goes away. And they just flip on a stern light. Same, it's the same thing with a pusher toe. Side lights, no stern light because it would blind the captain. Two mast headlights, that's all the same. The only difference in this diagram is the yellow lights. They go away in this diagram and they just flip on a stern light. So a way that I study this in the past, and my best recommendation is figure out what's different with these two pictures. And the only difference between these two pictures, everything
Yellow
else is
over
the
yellow.
same, is the yellow light. There's no yellow lights. And they just turn on a stern light. It's just a few things. Any questions with this? All right, I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna get into new info. Which a lot of it though, we've already went over, actually. So like, I started talking about things that weren't on the slides specifically for this reason. Because now we're gonna get into this stuff more in details. But a lot of the stuff that we're gonna go over today is a new information, yes, but I've already talked about it. So it's gonna be your second time hearing about it. And there's gonna be new information that you haven't heard. So the main thing that I told you guys the other day before we got into the rules of the road is what you're gonna learn is you can always depart from the rules of the road to avoid immediate danger or risk a collision. So you can't let the rules of the road dictate best judgment and common sense. So I'm gonna share my screen. All right. So the purpose and scope of the nautical road. So it's really to be able to tell the difference between inland rules and international rules. As I mentioned, the US breaks it into two separate categories. And it's learning the language of it. So that's like even like with chart plotting too, like it's like anything you do. It's a whole different language. And like a way, especially with the chart plotting, especially like, unless you took a maritime course like this, you never like learn chart plotting. And at first it's comes off maybe a little more difficult than it is, but it's because you don't know the language of it. But then once you start learning the language of it, it starts to get easier. So the purpose of the rules of the road, the reason why they make all these things is to prevent collisions, prevent damage or loss of property, standardize ships routing and vessel traffic management, and prevent losses of lives. Boating is a serious thing. The ocean's a beautiful place, but like it can turn on you so fast. and you have, and depending on the situation, you have minutes before a life or death situation happens. So knowing the rules of the road can prevent a lot of these things from happening. Out of the whole, think about the whole United States population. A very small percent of the population are boat owners, and a very small percent of boat owners are captains. So a majority of people that are on the water, a lot of them don't know the rules of the road. So the format of the rules are breakdown into categories. So there's part A, which is the general, part B, steering and sailing rules, part C is lights and shapes, part D is sound and light signals. That's like Morse code, it's communication through sound and light. And part D is exemptions. So then we have the annexes. The only thing that you have to know about the annexes is annexes equals fishing. Write that down. If you get a question and it asks you about the annexes, look for the answer that says fishing in it. Or they could ask you a fishing question, and then you would look for the answer that says annexes in it. Annexes equals fishing, fishing equals annexes. That's the only thing with the annexes that you have to know. So,
Paul, quick question. We're on page 232 in the book, right?
yeah, this is the start of it. Yeah.
All right.
Part B, steering and sailing rules. I'm just reading this quick. So, vessels are in sight of one another when one can visually be seen from another. So, meaning, if I'm walking over the Salem Beverly Bridge and I'm watching vessels head outbound out to go to Misery Island, they are in sight because I can see them and they can't see me. So that's the definition of being in sight of one another, is when one can be visually seen by the other, but they can't see both. And then we're going to also learn about conductive vessels and restricted visibility. So there's a couple terminologies that we're going to learn later on, and it's called standway and giveway, stand on and giveway. And a stand-on vessel maintains course and speed. A giveaway vessel has to give the right of way. So, like for instance, like if you had two power-driven vessels and I'm driving and I see a power-driven vessel coming off my port side, I would see the green starboard side light. Green means go, maintain course and speed. So I would be the stand-on vessel and they would be the giveaway. But if they were coming off of my starboard, I would see their port side light, which is red, and red means stop. So that means I'm the giveaway and they're the stand-on. But when you're in restricted visibility, there's no such thing as stand-on and giveaway. Everyone's at fault. I'll go over that again. But when you're in restricted visibility, no one has the right of way. Between the example I just gave.
Does that mean nighttime?
Yeah. Nighttime, daytime.
Oh, really?
No,
Oh, I didn't know that.
nighttime. So no, I mean like nighttime, there's days where the visibility is very clear and
Uh-huh.
you can see someone's navigation lights from miles upon miles away, especially if you go like tuna fishing and you're coming out of Salem or Gloucester and like the northwest corner is like a city, you can see all those boats from like 10 miles away.
Yeah.
But one of the tuna trips I did a little over a month ago, I left at like 3 in the morning. It was so foggy out, I couldn't see anything. And I couldn't see the boats on the corner until I got to the corner. So like that's restricted visibility. I could pick them up on my radar, but like I couldn't see like 15 feet in front of the boat. It was just so foggy up.
That's because you have a fast boat and we had to go the night before.
Yeah. So then, we're gonna get into the lights and day shapes, which a lot of it we already went over, but we're gonna go over it again and again and again. The only thing about the annexes, like I mentioned, is annexes equals fishing. So now we're gonna get into like the real info of like the importance of the slide starts now. So rule one. So you don't have to remember the rule numbers. It's just knowing the rule. So international rule equals the high seas. So if it asks you to define the international rule of the road, you look for the answer that says high seas in it. Inland rule is these rules apply to all vessels inside the inland waters outside the Colorado demarcation line on lake space sounds as long as they don't interfere with Canadian law. So like if you're coming out of Salem, the Colorado demarcation line is like inland of Baker's Island, Missouri, not too far away from it. But then like when you're coming out of Marblehead, the way it's drawn, if I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but like it's pretty close at the beginning of it, like the way it's drawn, it starts right at the no wake zone, but then it's drawn out towards Baker's Island. So like if you're coming on like the Corinthian side of Marblehead and you go past the no wake zone, the Colorado's demarcation line is very close to that. But then it goes more out towards Baker. So if you're coming off of the other side where the main channel is, it's much more farther away. Which on a nautical chart I'll show you what it looks like. But it's like a pink magenta line. It says Colorado's demarcation on it. So nothing in these rules, like I said, should interfere with your best judgment or common sense. Like I mentioned, you can depart from any of these rules of the road to avoid immediate danger. When does risk of collision exist? It's when you think it exists. It's not a maybe does it exist? It's a yes or a no. And if it's to avoid immediate danger, you can depart from any rules of the road. Like, and that might be going more than 5 miles an hour in a no wake zone to get out of the way of a serious accident. So, no matter what these rules say, you can always depart from them to get to involve a serious accident. And danger exists when you believe it exists. So, the vessel is described as every description of a watercraft. It's really any form of transportation used on the water. So like we learned about like a manually propelled vessel, a paddle board is a vessel, a jet ski is a vessel, a kayak is a vessel. So then you have manually propelled vessels, power driven, or sailing. So a power driven vessel is any vessel propelled by machinery. And with the lights for a power driven vessel, it's breaking into three separate categories. If a power driven vessel is less than 12 meters in length, then they have to have side lights and an all around white light. If they're greater than 12 meters in length but less than 50, then they have to have side lights, stern light, masthead light. And if it's greater than 50, then they have to have two masthead lights on the fore and aft center line of the vessel, side lights, and a stern light. And then you have a sailing vessel, which is any vessel under sail provided that propelling machinery, if fitted, is not being used. So even if your sail is up and you can visually see someone using their outboard engine on it, it's treated as a power-driven vessel. And especially you know if it's a power-driven if their sail's not up, then it's just a power-driven vessel. It's only a sailing vessel if they're under sail and they're not using an engine. In a sailing vessel, that's when I first stop. I'm like, okay, wait a second. A sailing vessel has its own special set of rules. So they're allowed to show their silhouettes at the top of the mast, and it would be red over green sailing serene. So then on top of the other vessels in the pecking order that we learned for like the day shapes and lights, if they're over 20 meters in length, then they must show their day shape and lights. But if a sailing vessel is being propelled by machinery, so now it's a power driven vessel, they have to show that black cone if they're 12 meters or more in length. Then they must show it. So that's where the rules of the road change a little bit. Then I mentioned the definition of a fishing vessel. And the definition is in any vessel fishing with nets, lines, or trawls, or other fishing apparatus which restricts maneuverability. It does not include a vessel fishing with trolling lines or other fishing apparatus which does not restrict maneuverability. So, you go out ground fishing for haddock. You're not a fishing vessel. That doesn't restrict maneuverability. You go out by Misery Island, Baker's Island, and you're jigging for mackerel. And then you fly to Boston Harbor and you start casting at a school of bass. You're not a fishing vessel. You're just a power-driven vessel underway, either making way or not making way. So then a seaplane is any aircraft designed to maneuver on the water, and they have no right of ways because they choose when they become a vessel. Now with fishing, there's two different categories of fishing. There's fishing that's using gear that restricts maneuverability, but then there's a trawling. So if it's a fishing vessel that they're not engaged in trawling, but they use another gear that restricts maneuverability, then they would have a red light over a white light. And then the day shape would be two cones with the apexes facing together. But then if they're trawling, then it's green over white trawling at night. And the same day shape would be two cones with their apexes facing together. Any questions so far? So now we're gonna really go over more of the pecking order right away. So what's the saying for pecking order? It's new reels catch fish, so purchase them. And the first vessel that comes up in the pecking order is new, which means not under command. And the definition of not under command is a vessel which, through some exceptional circumstance, is unable to maneuver as required by these rules and is therefore unable to keep out of the way of another vessel. They're at the top of the list. Disabled vessel. They could lose steering fluid, like I did. Um, they could have a serious medical emergency, the captain could, um, due to an exceptional circumstance. Then the next vessel is restricted inability to maneuver. The definition of that is a vessel which, from the nature of her work, is restricted in her ability to maneuver as required by these rules and is therefore unable to keep out of the way of another vessel. So the saying for not under command is red over red. Captain is dead, put two balls in his grave. So it's two all around red lights in a vertical line. And during the day, it would be two black balls. Now, with these two vessels, like a ram vessel would show red, white, red, and then the day shape would be ball, diamond, ball. So with these two vessels, if they're 20 meters or more in length, then they must show those lights in day shapes. So here are some examples of being restricted in ability to maneuver. It's due to the nature of the vessel's work. So some of the examples are engage in laying, servicing, picking up navigational mark, submarine cable, or pipeline, engaged in dredging, surveying, or underwater operations, engaged in the replenishment of transferring persons, provisions, or cargo while underway, engaged in launching or recovery of an aircraft, like I mentioned, engaged in mine clearance operations, towing. That severely restricts the vessel in her tow to be able to deviate from their course. It's due to the nature of the vessel's work. They're unable to maneuver out of the way, but they have to give the right of way to a vessel that's not under command. Vessel constrained by her draft. So, constrained by her draft, it's only a power-driven vessel only. So that could be a trick question that you could see in the book. It's constrained by draft is only a power-driven vessel. And constrained by draft, what's unique about it is it's only an international rule only. So you're only going to deal with this rule in the high seas. The reason why it's not an inland rule is because every vessel at some point in time is constrained by their draft. And the deviation of constrained by a draft is because of her draft in relation to the available depth in width of navigable water is severely restricted in her ability to deviate from her course she is following. Especially around Salem, I hear the schooner fame say that all the time. Um, Especially on like a spring tide and it's low tide out of Pickering Wharf. You're lucky if you have like 3 feet of water. So then I mentioned earlier, when John asked, whether if like a non under command vessel, it was a ram vessel from the other day, like, oh, do they have to have their other navigation lights on? Yes. So there's underway making way and there's underway not making way. And the definition of underway, like I mentioned, is a vessel that is not at anchor, made fast to shore or aground. So underway not making way is you're just drifting. Your engines are off. Your engines could even be running. You're just in neutral. So you're not making way through the water. So then if you were restricted in her ability to maneuver or not under command or constrained by her draft or fishing and you're underway not making way, you would just have those specific lights that tells you what they're engaged in, whether it's fishing or aground or etc. Well, not aground, but fishing constrained by draft. That's what I meant. But then if you're underway making way through the water, on top of those specific designated lights for fishing, not under command, restricted ability to maneuver, constrained by draft, they also have to have their side lights on, masthead lights, depending on the size, and stern light if it's over a certain amount of meters. Any questions so far of what I went over before I go into new info? So the Coast Guard is a federal agency. So any kind of trouble you get in regarding two on the water, the captain's license, you go into federal court because the Coast Guard is a federal agency. It's not state regulated, it's federally regulated. And, you know, in generally, I mean, I've learned this one from Greg of, helping him teach, before I started teaching on my own and whatnot. So, like, the rules state that, you must, you can depart from the rules of the road to avoid immediate danger. So, like, an example that I can give is like if you have two power-driven vessels. Now, I see this all the time when I'm out. I know I'm a stand-on vessel, and I see a vessel coming off my port that just doesn't slow down. They have no acknowledgement that I have the right of way. Like, yes, the rules of the road state that yes, I maintain course and speed. I don't do anything. But like I know that they're not going to slow down or get out of my way. So what does that mean? I have to depart from the rules of the road to avoid immediate danger to get out of the way. Because I can see that they're not going to slow down or get out of the way. So then I get into an accident. the Coast Guard can easily find you both at fault because it was apparent to me that this person wasn't slowing down or changing course or getting out of the way. But I was like, no, the rules say that I maintain course and speed. So if you get into an accident on the water, there is a chance where the Coast Guard could find you both 50-50 responsible from that rule, especially because you have to depart from the rules of the road to avoid immediate danger. So jurisdiction in the U.S. collisions on public navigable waters is a place of the Constitution in the hands of the federal courts. The Coast Guard is a federal agency, not state regulated. So that's why you want to go to state court, you're going to federal court. Legal personality of a vessel legally assumes the vessel herself the wrongdoer when collision falls violation of the rules of the road. Limited liability is the practice of limiting the liability of owners to loss, disaster to a ship due to negligence or the absentee agent master. So, like I mentioned in the prior class, a question that a lot of people ask, they're like, oh, hey, like, I've heard like just because you have a captain's license and if you're on someone else's boat and something happens, like you're responsible. That's not true. Because think about this. If I take an Uber drive, if I call an Uber and that Uber rear ends someone at a red light, is my insurance going up when I'm in the back seat? Just because I'm a licensed driver in Massachusetts, does my insurance go up? Or does the driver's insurance go up? The driver's insurance goes up. So just because I have a captain's license and I go on someone else's boat and something happens, I'm not responsible. I'm not driving. It's not my boat. So a lot of people ask that question. So then I give them that as an example. Well, if we call an Uber right now and they rear end someone at a red light, does our insurance go up? No, their insurance goes up. So before I get into the steering and sailing rules, does anyone have any questions? It's 6:42. Um, does anyone want me to go over the towing again? Or should we take like a 10-15 minute break and then we can go into the other half of the class? You guys are good? All right.
Whatever you want to do.
All right. You know what? I'll go over the towing again just because there was questions regarding that. And then we'll go on like a 10-15 minute break. So with the towing, there's three kind of tows. What are the three different kinds of tows?
Hauser hip pull.
Yep. A hawser tow, a pusher tow, and a hip tow. So on a hawser tow, when would you see three mast headlights in a vertical line? What does the
Oh,
length of the tow have to exceed?
over 200.
Over 200. But then if it's less than 200, how many mast headlights in a vertical line?
2.
Two. And do they have a towing light on it in international waters?
Yellow over yellow. Or I mean, yellow
Yellow.
over white.
Yellow over white towing at night. So a hawser tow is the only kind of a vessel that you're going to see a towing light, a yellow light, in the high seas. But in inland, and it's the same, and a hawser tow is the same for inland and international, unless the length of the tow exceeds 200 meters in length. So then, if it does exceed more than 200 meters in length, what's the day shape that they would have to display on the tug and the tow to let other people know that the length of the tow exceeds more than 200 meters in length?
Black diamond.
Yeah, a black diamond on the tug and the tow. So then we have a pusher toe and a hip toe. So for a hip toe, inland only. What yellow lights would you see? What kind of lights would you see on
Yellow
the
over yellow.
yellow over yellow, pushing another fellow, inland only? And that's on the tug. You would see two towing lights in a vertical line. They would also have side lights and two mast headlights stacked on top of each other. But then when they go into the high seas, does the two towing lights stay on or do they shut them off and what would they turn on?
Yeah, they switch the yellow and go to the white.
Yeah. So for a hip tow, you have two towing lights in a vertical line when you're in inland waters. Two mast headlights stacked on top of each other, side lights. And then on the tow itself, what you're towing alongside could be a barge. You have side lights, a stern light, and then what's the main thing that you have in inland waters on a front of a barge being pushed ahead or towing alongside in inland waters only? What kind of light?
Special blinking yellow light.
Flashing yellow light. Yep. And then when they go into the high seas, that flashing yellow light gets shut off. Their towing lights get shut off. There's no more yellow. And then they flick on their stern light. So then for a pusher tow, though, it's the same thing with the towing lights and the flashing yellow light. But on the tow itself during a pusher tow, inland and international, do they have a stern light?
No.
No, because it would blind the captain. So you're only gonna see yellow lights in international waters for a hawser tow, and it's yellow over white towing at night. But then when you're a pusher tow or a hip tow, there's no such thing as a yellow light in the high seas. Because flashing yellow light doesn't, it's only an inland rule only. And then the two towing lights is an inland rule only also stacked on top of each other. So the only yellow light you would see is a hawser tow, and it's yellow over white towing at night. And that's an inland rule only and an international rule only. It's both. It's not just one or the other. So I know that gets a little tricky and whatnot, but just keep, the best way to do it is make flashcards. And even if you think like, oh, if I hear the word hawser, that's the only time you'll see three mast headlights in a vertical line if it's greater than 200 meters in length. Is there any questions so far of what I went over all up until today? Is there anything that you're having trouble with before I get into new information?
I'm assuming this a lot of this toe stuff's on the test if you're going over it a lot, huh?
I go over the key points. You're
Okay.
definitely getting questions regarding towing. So, like, so like the thing is like, every class we learn new information. But like the way, I learned this when I did the train the trainer is like obviously there's a lot of information in the book and in the PowerPoints and whatnot, but like the way to start off every class is by going over really hammering the key points from the prior class. So like, especially like, once we're done with the rules of the road, I'm gonna go over a really good final review, and I'm going over like the real main. I mean, everything's important, but like I'm going over the main topics that we went over. And I mean, yeah, I mean, it's 50 multiple choice questions. You're gonna get questions that touch upon every subject, but like, a lot, but like the towing is a little more harder, I would say, just because with all the lights and the difference between inland and international. So like when things get a little more trickier with towing, now I can only go by like data, right? So it's like, I've taught over 100 plus people, maybe 200 plus, right? And a lot of the questions that come back are like, oh, they need towing more explained. So that's why I go over these certain subjects and over again. I keep asking questions about towing, is because of the data that I have off of previous students. That's what I can only go by. So but it's like 6:50. Let's take like a 15-minute break, and then I'm gonna get into the steering and sailing rules and go over what we just went over again. And we don't have a ton of more that I'm gonna go over. I don't want to overcrowd you guys with information. But we'll see what we get through. And then, Thursday we're gonna finish through 15. And then we only have one slide deck left of the rules. And then you guys are exposed to all of them. And then, like I mentioned, over the weekend, I'm gonna send you guys with a practice exam to do. The first one that I'm gonna give you is only like 30 questions. So, which most of what we go over will be on it. But like I said, it's it's to see what you know. Because what you know. But like an important way of like studying is like figuring out what you know and what you don't know. Because what you know. And when time is the only thing you can't get back in life, right? So like spending your time wisely in studying things that you don't know is the key. And that's, coming from doing questions. You're gonna understand like, your strengths and weaknesses. And that's what these questions do. And what Greg does in the book too, which is really helpful with all the practice questions in the book, which is hundreds for the rules of the road, is if he tells every class this, whether you get it right or wrong, go to the back of the book, see where the question came from. It tells you the right answer and the rule that it came from, and then read the rule. Now, in my opinion, it's really important to do that if you get it wrong, because then you're going to read the rule and figure out why did you get it wrong. So that's a very helpful way to do it. So yeah, let's take like a 15-minute break and then we'll get back on here. I'm just going to mute my screen.
Paul, I got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
When do we get into chart plotting? You may have said it at the beginning. I was like 5 minutes late today.
Uh, a week from Thursday, like next Thursday, not this Thursday, but
Okay.
the following. That's
Greg
that's
said he was gonna send me a chart. I think he said it to a couple of people. I'm not sure if they got him or not.
I
Yeah,
have an
I
extra
haven't
one
got mine.
also. I can always drop it off to you if for some reason you haven't got it yet. But I'll double check with him.
I haven't gotten mine yet
Thanks.
either, Mark.
You haven't? So all right, let me take note of that. I'll make sure he mails those out and for he's in Gloucester too this whole week at Cape Ann Marina, so he should have extra charts on him. But I'll make note of it.
Paul, if you have one, I'll grab one from you this weekend.
Okay.
I only need one. I have one. My dog ate the other.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, swear to God.
Oh, it's believable. Yeah, like in reality, like with all the chart plotting we do with the practice, like by the end of it, you try. I always tell people to use like draw lightly, and you can only use like white erasers on it because it'll mark it up otherwise. But like, for some reason, if you guys need a new chart, that's fine. So don't stress about it.
You guys still have
So
your boat in?
yeah, it's in Gloucester. I gotta get it out soon.
Paul, you're not staying till December 1st?
I am. It's just I am. I'm just hoping to do a couple trips out of it.
Are you gonna trailer it?
No, I don't have a trailer for it.
Uh,
I'm just keeping it at a PS7 actually. And yeah, I mean the way the weather's been, it's just been crappy. I had a handful of trips that I had to cancel recently for like ground fish and stuff, but just the weather's been too crappy out there. It's just been like 4 or 5 plus feet every like few seconds, and the winds have been crazy, so it's not even feasible to go out.
Mark, are you staying in?
I am staying in, but this will probably be my last year. Every year I say I regret it. I actually love fishing November when it's closed. I like going out and screwing around, but it's I don't know. This weather just if we had 5 years of great weather. I hope it didn't go away.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get out a few times at least. I haven't really been out at all. This is my first year keeping the boat in lake too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's normally great, but in December fishing can be great too. But if
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
this, it's not gonna be fun.
No, not the way it's been. So this is before I go into the steering and sailing rules, which we were going to get into. I skipped over this one slide, which was my mistake. But so just to go over this quick. So the length overall is, from bow to the prop. Um, so like for an example, like I have a Parker 2820, but like the length overall is like 32 feet. So that's LOA. Breadth, a vessel's greatest breadth, that pretty much means like the beam, which is like the widest point of the vessel. Another thing that I mentioned before is about being in sight of one another. That's when only one can be observed visually from the other. That's not including by radar. So that doesn't mean that you're inside of one another. You have to see them with your eyes, not through electronics. And restricted visibility is any condition where visibility is restricted, whether it's fog, mist, snow, rain, etc. So where we left off is the steering and sailing rules. So like I said, you don't have to know like the rule number or the rule that they're associated with. It's just knowing and understanding the rule is the important part of it. So at all times, you must maintain a proper lookout through sight and hearing. Now, especially like in fog, once we get into the sound signals, which, at the end of today, because we're gonna really get into that Thursday, I'm not gonna show you it to overwhelm you guys, but I just want to at least explain the one big slide of sounds. Not for you guys to memorize it at all, but just to introduce you to it. So then when I start going over it again on Thursday, even if a little bit of it sticks from what I explained today, that's awesome. But that's what I kind of do at the end of each class as well, especially when we start getting into more complicated information, is I like explaining it once before I really go into depth detail in it the next class. That really helps out a lot. So always have to have a proper lookout through sight and through hearing, especially in fog. Like, you can't see, but you can hear. And once we learn the fog signals, if you hear two prolonged blast, you know, in every, 2-minute intervals, you maintain course and speed because that means it's a power driven vessel that's underway, not making way. They're dead in the water behind you. So, but if I hear one prolonged blast forward of my beam, you reduce your speed of beer steerage way and you alter your course to starboard because that means there's a power driven vessel, in front of you. So, like we mentioned, like, especially on radar, it runs on relative motion, which is like actual ship center line. So, like, a lot of times, like when I drive in the fog a lot. It's not the funnest thing in the world. I can't stand it, but like it happens a lot. And you got to be really careful with it. So that's why I hate understanding and learning the sound signals for it is really important. Safe speed. So whether it's a clear visible day and you can see 10 nautical miles in front of you, or you're in pea soup fog, you always have to travel at a safe speed. And that's the speed where you can take proper and effective action to avoid collision. Now, there's a lot of factors that determine safe speed. Safe speed changes every day. And some of those factors, including sea state, visibility, restricted visibility. So it's a variable. It always changes. And especially too, like even if it's a real flat day out, I mean, this has happened to me a couple times where like I'm going like 30 and then all of a sudden a whale decides to breach right in front of the boat. And then I have to like really turn the wheel hard to starboard and get out of the way with it. So like it's happened to me a couple times and it's the most sketchiest thing ever. But like, even on a clear day when it's flat as glass and you can see 10, 12 miles, even going 25, 30, even faster than that's not smart because animals are animals. So, even like, a floating piece of debris could be floating and you don't see it until you get right up on it. So you gotta always travel at a safe speed where you can take proper and effective action to avoid a collision. And some of those factors are the sea state and like restricted visibility and things like that. So risk of collision is when there's a constant bearing in a decreasing range. So a bearing is so like if we were standing on a street, you bear from me. So a bearing is an object that is away from you, not you are from it. So like if me and Laurie was standing in a classroom, I could say Laurie bears 0 degrees from me, but which is north, but I bear 180 from Laurie. So a constant bearing is the angle between two objects, whether it's two vessels or two people or a car and a wall or whatever, right? That's a bearing. But then a decrease in range is that distance getting shorter and shorter and shorter, but the bearing is constant. So risk of collision exists is when there's a constant bearing steady bearing, in a decreasing range. That's when risk of collision exists. CBDR. So, when does risk of collision exist? It's when you think it exists. And you have to take positive, early, and substantial action to avoid a collision. Once you deem it exists, it exists. Don't wait. Just make the maneuver. Get out of the way. Especially when I'm driving, and like I mentioned this example previously. It's like, I'm driving and I see another power-driven vessel coming from my port. The rules of the road state that, yeah, two power-driven vessels, if it's coming from my port, I maintain course and speed, right? But like looking at this guy coming off of my port, I know they're not slowing down. They're coming right at me. I know that they're not getting out of the way. So then I have to take positive, early, and substantial action to avoid that collision. Even though I have the right of way, I have to depart from the rules of the road to avoid immediate danger. And that's when risk of collision exists, when there's a steady bearing and there's a decrease in range. That boat is getting closer to me and closer to me and closer to me. Now, especially too, like they could even be coming from behind you. You're going slow and they're going fast and they're coming at you, constant bearing, decreasing range. They could be coming any angle from you. So that's why it's really important to always pay attention to your radar. And, that's why you even want your radar on, it's a rule that you have to use all available means while navigating. And that means if you have a radar, that's got to be spinning even when the sun's up and you can see 10 miles. Why? Because think about this. Someone's out there, they're blasting music loud, right? Do you think they can hear another boat behind them? Maybe not. And imagine if they didn't have their radar turned on and that person like had a seizure and their boat was still engaged. You wouldn't hear them and that boat would run into you and cause a bad accident. But your radar would be able to detect that and pick that up. You would see a constant bearing decreasing range. Even though someone might have their music too loud, which isn't smart, you would actually see that on the radar. And that's why even if it's during the day and you can see 10, 12 miles, you want to have all that stuff on. And that's why it's a rule. And it's to prevent collisions, loss of property, loss of lives, things like that. That's why they make these rules. So you want to ensure that the course and speed changes are large enough to be seen by the other vessel. So you don't want to just make a small maneuver. You want to make a large course change. You want to take positive action. You don't want to just, so like the thing is too, is when you make a course change, you don't want to put yourself into another close quarters situation. Like, what does that mean? It means that you could be getting out of one bad situation, but then if you don't make a positive course change and you don't make a large course change, you could put yourself into another risk of collision accident as well, trying to avoid another one. So you have to take positive early action and you have to ensure that the course and speed changes are large enough to be seen by the other vessel as well. And you don't put yourself into another dangerous situation also, especially like all the weekend warriors. Like the weekends are crazy. Once the action is taken, check throughout the maneuver to ensure it is working as intended and to make sure you're not putting yourself into that other bad situation. And if necessary to avoid collision, you can slow down to, assess more time, the situation, come to a complete stop. So the terminology that I already mentioned about a little bit previous class, and you learned a little bit about it in deck general, is the term bare steerage way. That's the minimum speed that you can maintain your heading. It's not the slowest speed that your boat can go. It's how slow you can go while you're maintaining your heading. So like if I'm steering 0 degrees, bare steerage way could be in neutral. I'm maintaining my 0 degree heading. Or it could be 5 miles an hour. It could be 3 miles an hour. But that's what, we teach is like, especially on radar, if you're not sure of something, reduce your speed to bear steerage away and navigate with caution. Or just put the boat in neutral and just let it go by if you're not sure. Is there any questions so far? So, narrow channels, when you see the word narrow channels, that's when you gotta kind of just like step back for a minute and say, okay, the narrow channels get treated specially in the rules of the road. It's like a sailing vessel that's propelled by machinery. Instead of being 20 meters or more in length, where the other vessels have to show their day shape or lights, and a sailing vessel has to be 12 meters in length or greater to show that day shape. Now narrow channels get their own special set of rules. And now the pecking order or right away changes completely. So when you're in a channel, especially a narrow channel, you got to stay to the right of the channel. It's just like a two-way street. You stay on your right appropriate traffic lane. And you'll learn about, and we'll get into the traffic separation scheme and whatnot. It's pretty much a two-sided highway, and you got to stay on the right side of it. So so this is where narrow channels in the pecking order changes. So if you're a small vessel that's less than 20 meters in length, you could be power driven, you could be sailing, it doesn't matter. So power driven, small vessels less than 20 meters in length, and sailing vessels and fishing vessels should not impede vessels which can only navigate safely in a narrow channel or fairway. Now, this is inland, waters especially. So, like, just because you're a sailing vessel, but you're less than 20 meters in length, which is 60 feet, and you get a big power driven vessel that's going down Marblehead Channel, you have to get out of their way because you are less than 20 meters in length. You're a sailing vessel, but this vessel that's coming down the channel is more than 20 meters in length. So now the pecking order changes. Now you have to get out of the way because they can only navigate safely in a narrow channel or a fairway, and they're greater than this length. So that's when the pecking order now changes a little bit. So when you see the word narrow channel, that's when you got to stop and think, okay, now the rules of the road change, the pecking order changes a little bit. Any questions so far? Traffic separation scheme. So stay in the correct lane of the channel. It's a two-sided street. You always stay on the right side. Keep clear of the traffic separation line or separation zone. So like if you're on like a main street on on the land and you have that yellow two straight yellow lines, that zone in between those lines is the separation zone. That separates the two traffic lanes. And it's invisible on the ocean, but it's there. So you always leave lanes at their ends or necessary to join elsewhere due at small angles to the flow of traffic. So it's kind of like when you're pulling out into the highway, you don't go across two lanes to merge onto the highway. You do at as small as an angle as possible, and you do it with the flow of traffic at the angle that the traffic's going. But if you were going to cross the channel and go from one side to the other side, like, a good example is the launch drivers from like the Jubilee. They're going from the Jubilee Yacht Club across the channel to the mooring field. And when they're crossing that main channel, they have to do that as, you know, they're not doing that as like they're going dead straight. They're not like just slowly like merging into the channel with the flow of traffic. They have to go straight across when it's safe.
Quick question. This might be a stupid question, but
The only stupid questions are the ones you don't ask.
I, when you say keep to the right, what if you're in Australia? Because they drive on the other side of the road. Do they sail on the other side of the road, so to speak?
That's honestly, I don't know. I can look it up. So like what I tell people, right, is it's okay not to know something, but it's not okay to act like you know something when you don't. And especially in the maritime industry when people's lives are in your hands. So that question, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know it,
Yeah,
but
or
I
like
can look it up.
Ireland or like countries that just, they reverse things
Like
on the
Europe,
road.
well, Europe, well, no, I think it would be like the same, but they're but Europe, Africa, and Asia is an ISLA system A. So it's just their buoy system is
Buoys are
flipped.
reversed. I know that.
Well, I think it's the same. It's just, when they're coming in
Yeah.
from the sea, like green's on their starboard and red's on their port.
But they
I,
would
I
still
don't think
stay to
the
the
I don't
right.
think I don't think the traffic flow gets like situated like that on the ocean, but then again, it's a different country. But I
I'm
think
gonna look it up. Now I'm
yeah,
curious.
that's a good question. That's a really good question. Any other questions? So like I went over like vessels inside of one another. That's when only one can visually see the other. And so like if you were driving out to sea and I was behind you and you didn't see me, but I could see you, that's being in sight of one another. So like if a person was walking over the Salem Beverly Bridge and we were on a boat, we were driving out past Jubilee, when we're facing like towards Misery and Bakers, we're in sight because they can see us, but we can't see them.
Hey,
So that's
Paul,
when
in
yeah.
Australia, they do stay to the right. Chat GPT said they do. So
Yeah, I just looked it up too. That must really screw them up because they're used to driving on the other side.
Yeah, especially if you only have a boat and then you buy a boat for the first time. That would definitely be confusing. So I went to Italy a few years ago for like a friend's wedding. This is actually longer than a few years ago. And I rented like a center console and we went out by Capri and the boat broke down, right? So then we're like drifting out and then we go throw the anchor, not enough anchor rope. It's the most like ridiculous thing I've ever been through in my life. So then like we're waving down boats driving by and they all speak Italian. I'm just like, you gotta tow me back. Like we're in a foreign country. And luckily, like one boat that went by, they spoke English and they gave us a tow back. It was the most craziest thing though. So that's my experience in Europe on a boat.
I guess Leonardo DiCaprio just picked up a guy stranded at sea.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was dude, it was crazy. I'll never forget that in my life. So sailing vessels, so the one on the starboard tack has the right of way. So you're gonna learn like windward and leeward, and especially like those terminologies like sailing vessels are really like propelled by the wind. So the one windward would have to give the right of way of the one that's leeward because they have more maneuverability. So assume the other sailing vessel on the starboard tack and therefore has the right of way. So overtaking. So I kind of mentioned a little bit about this in the previous class. So overtaking is when you're 22 and a half degrees abaft the beam of another vessel. So at night, you would only be able to see the vessel's stern light, neither side lights. Now, how do they come up with 22 and a half degrees abaft the beam? So it means that, 'cause they say, a side light has an unbroken light of 112 and a half degrees, and a stern light has an unbroken light of 135. So if you're behind that zone between 112 and a half degrees and 135, if you're behind that, that's overtaken because you would only be able to see that 135-degree arc of a light and you wouldn't be able to see their side light. So you're pretty much coming up from like right behind their stern and you can only see their stern light and you can't see the bow of their boat. That's overtaking. So once a vessel is overtaken, the situation cannot be changed into a crossing situation. So now this is where the signals of intention and execution start coming into a little bit. So like, because when you're overtaking, you're pretty much riding someone's bumper and want to go around them to cut in front of them. Okay. So when you're in inland waters, it's signals of intention. You would have to make the appropriate sound signal, and they would have to give you the agreement signal in order for you to make that maneuver. But if they don't make that, if they don't mimic the same sound as you, or they don't do anything, then you can't legally overtake them, whether it's port or starboard. But the international rules is signals of execution, where you don't need permission from the other vessel. There's no agreement signal, which I'm going to show you that slide. That's the last thing I'm going to show you guys today. Once we get through the stuff I'm going through now, just to explain that whole thing again. And signals of execution mean that you sound that appropriate sound signal and then you just make that maneuver. You don't need the other vessel's agreement. So that's the difference between signals of intention and signals of execution. One, signals of intention, you need permission. Signals of execution, you don't need permission, and you just do it.
I feel like this one needs a diagram.
Oh, it does. I'm going to show you that. Like I said, I'm starting to introduce you that now, because then it's like slide 70 something, which I'm going to skip to once we finish what I want to go through the rest of today. And then I want to show you that one slide and just explain the language of it. Because then what we're gonna spend a lot of time on Thursday going over it and the sounds and stuff. So a head-on situation. Two vessels meeting head to head, alter course to starboard for a port-to-port passage. A meeting situation exists when the other vessel's mast headlights are in line and both sides are nearly directly in front of us. If you see a Christmas tree coming at you, get out of the way. The more lights you see, the more dangerous the situation is. A special circumstance situation for the rules of the road is when there's more than two vessels meeting. So in like all these situations that we're going over and are gonna go over is between two vessels, but a special circumstance for the rules of the road is when there is more than two vessels meeting at once. That's a special circumstance situation. Across, so kind of just like on the land, like I mentioned, like um green means go, red means stop. So like if you're two power driven vessels and you see a green side light visible on the other vessel, you have the right of way. Green means go. You maintain course and speed. And if they're coming off of your starboard side, you would see their red port side light port line is red. Red means stop. You are the giveaway. You have to give them the right of way. So now, the pecking order is different, right? If you're a power driven, you see a sailing vessel, it doesn't matter if they're coming from your port or starboard. You have to give them the right of way and up the whole pecking order. But if this is two power driven vessels in this situation right now, and you see a green side light off your port side, you maintain course and speed, and green means go. But if they're off your starboard, red means stop. You would see their port side light. So there's so then this really gets into is stand on and give way coming up. So give way vessel. Give way vessel means you have to get out of the way. You have to change your course, slow down, stop, reverse your engines, alter your course. You have to get out of the way. And you have to take early and substantial action to avoid a collision. So then the other kind of vessel is a stand-on vessel. You maintain course and speed. This action makes the stand-on vessel predictable and allows the giveaway vessel the opportunity to take proper action to avoid collision. See how it says it allows the giveaway vessel to make that opportunity to take proper and effective action to avoid collision? Because what happens if we're the stand-on vessel and it becomes apparent to us that the giveaway vessel is not taking appropriate action to avoid a collision? Now we have to depart from the rules of the road, and now we have to get out of the way. Even though the rules say that we're the stand-on vessel and we maintain course and speed, throw that in the trash. It doesn't even matter anymore because we know that this person's not getting out of the way. Now I have to get out of the way. This happens to me all the time. All the time. Every weekend at least. I mean, I'm on the water 7 days a week. This happens to me all the time. So just because I have the right of way and I know I have the right of way doesn't mean I have the right of way. It means because now we're giving them the opportunity to take that action. But it depends if they do or don't. But once it becomes apparent to us, once we believe that risk of collision exists, it's not, you don't want to wait too close. You want to take positive, early, and effective action. So as soon as it becomes apparent to you, you know, make the maneuver. You don't want to make it a close quarter situation. Like I mentioned, if the giveaway vessel is not taking enough action, the stand-on vessel may take action, but word for word, what I just said is when it becomes apparent to you that the vessel is not taking action to avoid a collision, then the stand-on vessel must take action to avoid collision. So you can give them the opportunity to get out of the way. And then once it really becomes apparent to you, which as soon as I think they're not going to get out of the way, I just get out of the way because I mean, it's not, I'm not even cutting it close. I'll just slow down. But I don't even wait till this. I mean, if I know they're not going to take the action, I just change my course. So a power-driven vessel in a crossing situation, which maneuvers in accordance with this rule, shall avoid altering course to port for a vessel on her port side. You always want to turn away from a vessel. If someone's, vice versa, you know, if someone's off your port, you don't turn into them, you turn away from them. So, and the best thing to do sometimes is just slow down and just put the boat in neutral and just don't do anything. Just let them pass by and then pick up your course again. Slow to bear steerage way. So with the pecking order, we learned, new rails catch fish, so purchase them. So being overtaken, EN, overtaking would go down here. But like this, now we're adding this to the pecking order right away. But it says EN, not ING. ING would be down here. You're going around somebody. You're cutting in front of them. If you're being overtaken by another vessel, which generally is probably not under command, like not, but I mean, could it be? Yeah. But like you can, so like the thing is like, when we get into the sounds and stuff, you can always initiate maneuvering signals over the radio. That's what I do most of the time because like if I sound, you know, a short blast, maybe someone just thinks I'm being like mean and just beeping at them. Like, no, I'm trying to like, overtake you on your starboard side. So I just call on the radio. I'll just call on the radio and say the vessel's name and say, "Hey, can I overtake you?" Oh yeah, go ahead. All right, thank you. So like we mentioned, you always want to proceed at a safe speed. And that's, a speed in which you can take proper and effective action to avoid a collision. So, so if a vessel is forward of the beam, especially on radar, you always reduce your speed of bear steerage way. Always. That's the correct answer. Um, you know, Altercation of course towards the vessels of beam or abaft the beam. I mean, if it's behind you, you maintain course and speed. Unless like you're going slower and they're going faster, that'd be a different situation. But if they're behind you to your right and they're coming up on you, you alter course to port. Just steer away from them. Like you can always depart from these rules to avoid immediate danger. So, and it exists when you believe it exists. So, any questions of what I went over so far? I know it's a decent amount of information, and for like 20 minutes or so, I'm gonna spend time on this one slide because I'm really gonna go over it a lot on Thursday, but I want to introduce you guys to it because the sounds are a big part of the rules of the road, and I want to, and then like, it's going to answer a lot of questions with signals of intention and signals of execution. So before I even get into that, is there any questions of what I went over?
A lot of information.
It's a lot of information. And the more of our senses that we use, it's easier to be able to learn and take in and maintain new information. I mean, I was in your shoes years ago. I was pulling my hair out of my head. I was. There was no reason why I wasn't pulling my hair out of my head. But what I did is I just took it one day at a time and I just focused on one day at a time. So I'm not gonna, I'm not showing you this next slide to overwhelm you guys. I'm not. But there's a way I do things. And in reality, I shouldn't even be getting into this until Thursday, but I want you to see this for the first time. And at first, you're going to be like, oh my God, that looks like so much information, but it's really not. And I'm going to break it down. Because a lot of this information we already went over. It's just a repeat of what we already learned with like the pecking order and the day shapes and the lights and things like that. But the sound signals, so let me explain this. So no, I'm really going over this all on Thursday, but I gotta at least explain these two things before I even go into this. So so there's two sound signals that are made. There's a short blast, which has the duration of 1 second, beep, or you sound a prolonged blast, a blast that lasts from 4 to 6 seconds in duration, holding the horn for 4 to 6 seconds. So at first you're looking at this and you're like, oh my God, that looks like a lot of information, right? So I'm going over this now because I just want to introduce you to this. So then when I show you this again, especially like with the questions you had in the book with signals of intention and execution, this is now where you're really going to see it. So this is international rules of the road and inland rules of the road. And vessels required, so that it's power-driven vessels required to signal when maneuvering within sight of one another, international, and inside of one another, and meeting less than 1/2 mile in distance. So, international rules, are those signals of execution or intention?
Execution.
Yeah, execution. Now, inland rules are signals of what? Intention or execution?
Intention, you're asking permission.
Exactly. So now, what you're going to learn now, looking at all these, most of this is all the same. There's only two or three differences. So it's really, you got to study like one thing. You got to study like a few things. And you got to study the differences. So I am altering my course to starboard. I intend to leave you on my port side. That's the same thing. It's just a different wording. I intend or I am altering. So I am altering means I need permission. Signals of execution. Inland rules are signals of intention. I intend to leave you on my port side. One short blast. I intend to leave you on my port side. I am altering my course to starboard. I'm still leaving you on my port side. It's just different wording, but it's just one short blast. If I'm altering my course to port and leaving them on my starboard side, this is the exact same thing. So here is the exact same thing. It's just I intend or I am altering. It's different wording, but it's the same sound signal when you're in inland and international. Three short blast means I'm operating in a stern propulsion. That means you're backing away from a dock. Once I go over these other ones, I'll give examples of these. The danger signal means a couple other different things too. It's the danger signal, or it says I disagree with your proposal, or I don't understand your intentions. Going around a bend where where there's like obstructed view, like so put it this way, going around a bend, imagine if you're in your car and you're taking a right turn on a side street and there's a school bus or a FedEx truck on the corner and you're going around taking a right on that side street. Can you see another car that's coming around that school bus? No, you can't. But imagine if the rules of the road on land was if you were in that situation, you hold your horn in for 4 to 6 seconds. I would know that there's a car on that other side of that school bus because I'm hearing them sound their horn. So like, you know, without going into this too much in details and whatnot, because I don't want to stress you guys out. I just want to get you looking at this one slide. So like, because a lot of people say, oh, why do we have to learn all this stuff? Oh, people aren't going to know what that means. I'm like, you're right. But what is it going to get? Their attention. So like, it's like a lot of people, like, the light turns green. I'm just sitting behind this guy and I'm just like waiting a few seconds, and he's still sitting at a green light. So what do? I honk my horn. I see his head go up and he starts driving. It got his attention. And this is what you're doing. These sound signals that you're making, you're getting someone's attention. They're stopping what they're doing and they're actually looking up and around. So these sound signals are preventing collisions. Now, especially too, like, especially I do a lot of charters out of Marblehead, and there's like, 6, 7 other boats taking out, kids fishing trips. And then around noon, all these lobster boats are coming in and hot, right? And I'm, getting underway with, all these boats around me. And especially like all these lobster boats coming in hot, they don't make sound signals. They just do whatever they want. Okay, so like if I'm backing up, so in inland waters, there's an underway signal, which is one prolonged blast. So if I'm pulling forward from a dock or reverse from a dock, you sound one prolonged blast that lasts 4 to 6 seconds. Now, if I'm reversing out of a dock or out of a slip, backing up, I sound one prolonged blast followed by 3 short blasts. I do that a lot in Marblehead when I have 6 other charter boats around me and I have all these lobstermen that are coming in hot. So before I get underway, I sound one prolonged blast. And then if I'm backing up, I sound 3 short blasts right after that. That means I'm getting underway in inland waters and I'm operating in a stern propulsion. Do a lot of those lobstermen know what I'm doing by sounding it? Probably not. But guess what? I got their attention and they see what I'm doing. And that's the key with these rules of the road is a lot of people going to know what they mean? No, but it's going to get their attention and it's going to make them stop what they're doing. So, but when you're in international rules of the road, in the high sea, there's no underway signal. So in that case, a scenario, I'm pulling from a dock and I'm pulling forward, I wouldn't even sound anything. But if I'm operating in reverse out of a slip or a dock, I sound 3 short blasts of stern propulsion. So this is the only slide I'm showing you with sounds right now because there's other sounds and stuff. But it's just kind of like the reason why I brought this up is because you guys had 2 questions regarding signals of intention and execution. And this is really the slide where I can show you the language and how those things actually come into place. Because it's the language I am altering or I intend. I intend means I need permission. I am altering, I'm just telling you what I'm doing and I do it. So that's the difference between signals of intention and signals of execution. Does so an agreement signal, there's no agreement signal for international rules because they're signals of execution. But I do need agreement for signals of intention because I need permission from the other vessel. So that's why there's an agreement signal. And for the agreement signal, all they have to do is mimic the same sound. Or, you could go over the radio and arrange for passage and whatnot. But if they don't sound anything, they don't give you permission. They have to do the same sound, or they could go on the radio and say, yeah, you're good. If they don't do anything, then you can't legally make that maneuver. And then light signals are the same exact thing for these. So, like 3 flashes of a light would be a stern propulsion. Same thing. So I am altering means I'm telling you what I'm doing and I just do it. I intend means I intend to make this maneuver, but I need your permission. And if you tell me no, then legally I can't do it. So all this is the same. One short blast, one short blast, two short blast, two short blast. I intend to leave you. I, I am altering my course to starboard is the same thing as I intend to leave you on my port side. You're still altering the boat. You're still turning the steering wheel to starboard. It's just the language of it because in inland waters you need permission. In international waters you don't.
Well, Paul, it looks like it's backwards too. You have one short blast at starboard, but then one short blast at port.
Well, so let me explain. So I am altering my course to starboard. I'm turning my steering wheel to the right. So I'm leaving that other vessel on my port side, which is my left. So then I intend to leave you on my port side. You're still on my left, and I'm still turning the steering wheel to the right. It's just a different language, but it means the same thing. So I I am altering my course to starboard. I'm leaving you on my port side. It's just the language because in international waters, I'm telling you what I'm doing and I just do it. I make the one short blast and I just do it. But then when inland rules, I'm asking for permission and I'm saying, hey, Colin, I intend to leave you on my port side and I'm going to pass you on your starboard side. It's the
Right, but
same.
look at you're saying one short blast is starboard, one short blast is port on the
No,
inland.
you you're not wrong with the words, but it's these it's these words that are different answers. I am altering my course to starboard, meaning I'm turning the wheel to the right. This is saying the exact same thing, it's just a different language. I intend to leave you on my port side. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Look under the word though. It's opposite, inland and international.
I know. International is signals of execution.
But it's
So,
one short blast for starboard. Inland is one short blast for port.
yeah, starboard, port, port, starboard. So it's the same. This, I know it's confusing. So let me try to explain this a different way. Just give me 2 seconds. Does anyone else see what I'm saying?
I see it.
Okay,
Where it
I just
says
want to make sure. I just want to make
where
sure.
it
Maybe you
says
don't.
starboard and port, you have to fill that word into the sentence. So the reason it's reversed is because the sentence is saying something different. So in the first sentence, it's saying, I'm altering my course to my, and then you would choose the word next to short blast. And if you said starboard, it would be one short blast. That is the same thing, the way you're moving the boat, as I intend to leave you on my port side. So
Does that
it's,
help, Colin?
I don't know if that helps, but
Yeah, now I see what you're saying.
the word is like, it's a fill in
Yeah,
the,
I was just trying to think of a different wording to. It is tricky. It's just you're choosing this word to go in a sentence. So you're right, which I'm glad you explained that a little different way than I did, because it is confusing when you first read it at first, but then when you actually like when you read the sentence, I am altering let me try to think of a better way. I am steering my course to starboard. I am gonna I intend to put my boat on your starboard side. Like it's just a different language. So, but you're right. So one short blast is it so in reality the easiest maneuver is just turning your wheel to starboard.
Yeah.
So one short blast, that's why it's one short blast. It's easy. Turning your wheel to port is more complicated. So that's why it's two short blast. Does that help, Colin?
Yeah, I'll try to understand it a little bit, but I get what
No,
Lori's saying.
it's okay. This is why I want to introduce you guys to this today because I'm really going to spend a lot of time with this on Thursday. So that this is why I'm doing this because now it's getting you guys thinking about this stuff instead of just like getting into it Thursday and then not meeting until till Monday. So like I am altering my course to starboard. I'm steering the boat to starboard. That's it. International, you're just telling them what you're doing and you do it. This is just saying like I intend to leave you. So I intend to leave your vessel on my left, my port side. So like you're still going to the right. It's just a different language of saying I'm operating my vessel to the right and leaving you on my left. Read it out loud. I am altering my course to starboard. I intend to leave you on my port side, meaning I'm leaving that other vessel on my left. So this is the same thing. It's just a different language in it. But this is why, like I said, this is why I'm introducing this stuff because, like I said, with the sounds and stuff, like so towing, I really hit hard, right? A lot of questions. I kept bringing this stuff up. So this is why I do this with all the sounds and stuff too, because this is the other area where, with students in the past had more questions with. So this is why I start going over this information before I actually start teaching it on Thursday.
What is a bend signal?
So this is like the if you're going around an obstructed area where you can't see what's coming on the other side of it, like going around like a curve, or like,
Okay.
being in your car and there's a school
Yeah.
bus or a FedEx
Okay.
truck
No, yeah,
parked
you
on the side
mentioned
of
you
the
mentioned
street.
that earlier. Yeah, so it's a
So it's like you're driving, but like you can't see what's coming on the other side. And if what is that one prolonged blast gonna do? It's gonna avoid you guys colliding if you like think it's
why
like if
wouldn't
you
you who's gonna make the call? Why wouldn't you do 5 short blasts?
that's the danger signal. If you're well, like legally, if you're going around a bendway, the areas that is obstructed, you're supposed to do one prolonged blast.
Okay.
Um, so like the danger signal is it's meant for danger, or it means I don't agree with your proposal or I don't understand your intentions, which I don't know why they would combine the danger signal into those three categories because danger means danger.
But
So,
wait, what's an example of danger?
um, like someone that's getting like for instance like if you're the stand-on vessel and you're a giveaway vessel, stand-on maintains course and speed, giveaway's supposed to get out of the way, and what happens if you're docked at the landing dock in Marblehead and you're sitting on your boat fueling up and another boat is not paying attention, they're just reversing at you,
Oh,
sound five short blast, danger signal, like so that's an example. It's just letting someone know that danger exists.
You see that a lot where I am in the Piscataway River in Portsmouth because it's wider, but as a river, and you can have sections that it's just you can pass, but you'd have to put somebody in the rocks, whereas they might not see it. So I guess
Yeah.
that would be,
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we always use the bend signal at E-Dock coming out in Damersport because you can't see
Yeah.
anything, especially
Yeah,
in Jim's
exactly.
boat.
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to prevent an accident from happening. So you're just grabbing someone's attention.
Hmm.
So this is why I want to like get into this now. Not for you guys to, I don't expect you guys to memorize this for Thursday, but at least this is like a big bulk, of it's a lot of information on one slide, but it's not going to be, and I'm going to explain this completely again on Thursday, and that's going to be my second time explaining it. So, some things will stick, and it's not your first time hearing it. So that, that's the objective of it, really. Um,
Paul, would you give like the bend signal if you're coming out of Kernwood? Like if you're going outbound
no,
or inbound? No.
I mean, you could, it doesn't hurt, but like, if your view is obstructed, sound it. Um, that's my best recommendation. But so like if you're coming out of a marina and like there's a large sport fish, like large vessels docks like at the end of it, and you're going around them and you can't really see if there's other vessels coming, and your radar would be blocked also because can't see over that boat. You would sound it. So where your view's obstructed. Any questions regarding this? I know it's a lot of information at once, but I just wanted to go over it a little bit. But the only reason why I went over this too is because we had those couple questions in the book where I wanted to show you like the actual language of this stuff. So like especially too on like practice tests and whatnot, like with some of the practice questions you did, it says inland only, international only, or both. So like if it says international only and it answer starts with I intend, cross that one off because that's a signal of intention. But international only, it would be signals of execution. So that's like how to like learn to answer these questions is reading the question and reading the language of the answers because you could get a question you know in the practice book or whatever, and it could say if you're operating in a it says if I want to like you could get a question, it could say like if I am in international only, if you want to overtake someone on their starboard side, what would you sound? And it would say what oh, I'm trying to think, give me a second, sorry. It would say it would pretty much give you this, and it would say international only, and what would this mean? And an answer would say I am altering my course to starboard. Another answer would say, I intend to leave you on my port side. And then it could give you like a stern propulsion or one prolonged blast. So the right answer is, I am altering my course to starboard. But why is this the right answer? Because this, in theory, this and this is the same thing. This is the same thing. It's the language, though. And international rules are signals of execution. So it's, I am altering. I'm telling you what I'm going to do, and I just do it. But if it said inland only, like this is the same thing as this, but it's the language. Now I need permission.
The maneuver of the boat is the same.
Yeah,
Both
exactly.
cases, you're turning to the right.
Yeah, exactly.
What's different is the first one is like, I am telling you what I'm doing. And the other one is
Exactly.
like, I'm kind of asking you if it's okay.
Exactly. It's the same maneuver. It's just a different language of intention or execution.
All
That's
right.
what I was like, that's what I was referring to, Colin. It's the same maneuver. It's just different wording where you need permission or not permission. But
Yeah,
you're doing the same
now
thing
I
with your hands.
understand it after Lori just said what she just said. That makes more sense to me now.
No, it's good.
So just so because everybody's different. If I hear a short, I've heard a short, horn versus a prolonged horn. Is there like a number of seconds that somebody would, that's in the reg, like in the reg anyway, like once?
What, how many seconds you would have to hold your, you're on mute.
I guess what's a prolonged blast versus a short blast? I might hear something and I'll be like, was that a prolonged blast? Was that a short,
Yeah, we're gonna really get into this Thursday, but yeah, so a short blast has the duration of 1 second,
Oh,
and
okay.
a
That's what I was
prolonged
looking for.
blast has a duration of 4 to 6 seconds.
There you go. You already got it. You're ahead of me.
I
I'm
mean,
ahead of you.
honestly, like what you'll hear is someone hold it for like 3 seconds. Like if someone holds it for like 6 seconds, they're just having a bad morning. Like I've never heard someone hold a horn for that long. But but then yeah, short blast is 1 second.
The only people doing that is like the Salem ferry.
Yeah,
They'll hold it the full 6 seconds.
yeah, exactly. That's like,
And
hey,
they'll
get out
give
of
you
my
the three
way. Hold your
short ones
fishing
as they're
lines.
backing
Yeah,
up.
yeah. Especially too that like especially like when you go on those whale watch boats and they do it and
Yeah.
they don't tell you when they get do it and you're standing on the top deck.
Yeah, you jump
It's
out of your
loud.
skin.
Yeah, you do.
So loud.
It's funny. So other than that, we can call it. I mean, I'm not gonna go over any more information, and I know you guys are tired. So, do you guys have any other questions?
Nice sunset, Paul.
Gorgeous picture.
Nice
Thank you.
boat. I got the 25-20.
That's before the raft and the gin pole, huh? It's an old pic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where was
Yeah,
that taken?
I think I have the same
Winter
boat,
Island.
25-20.
Winter Island. Yeah,
I
that
was
was like a
just
couple
gonna
years
say
ago.
it looks so familiar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's at Winter Island.
Yep.
Around the fall, like, is the best time, like, for the sunrises and stuff.
Yeah,
The
that's
colors come out.
John, you have that same boat?
I have the 2020, 25-20.
Nice.
It's the same. It's the blue hull. Like that. Is that what that is? It's good, like the
Yeah,
blue hull. Yeah.
it's the blue hull.
Just kind of, yeah.
So we obviously went over a lot of information. Don't look at anything with silence. I just want to introduce you guys to it a little bit. Um, just because we're really gonna get into that on Thursday. But review just we covered up till really like 40. So I'm gonna send you guys the whole PowerPoint. It's one PowerPoint, 13, 14, and 15. But we only really covered up until like slide 40. So I did just show you the one extra slide in the 70s, but don't get yourself overwhelmed and go look at that stuff. I just wanted to like start introducing you. So any other questions? All right. Have a good night, guys. I'll
See ya,
email you
Paul.
guys.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
If you can grab that chart too,
Thanks, Paul.
I'll text you. All
Yeah, sounds good.
right, man. Thanks.
Take care.
Good night.
Night.